The planning part is what I see everybody missing is I look at my next day and I'm looking for two things. First and foremost, where's the white space in my calendar? And what I mean by that is you mentioned my calendar is color-coded. It is color-coded. It's by category. Some of it's clients, some of it's like project work, some of it's like being in studio doing this. But I look for the white space. And the white space in my calendar is where I don't have anything there. Nothing's scheduled. So I look at my to-do list, I look at my white space, and the night before, I plug in my to-do. Welcome to No Limits with Kristin, Andree. We are here today with my sidekick, Whitney Mendoza.
I meant to come up with a name before.
With my sidekick without a sidekick name, Whitney Mendoza.
Man.
So we are, as if you tuned in last week, you know that we are expanding a little bit in No Limits podcast and taking the filters off. It's our little no filter segment and tackling some topics that we've heard from you guys and that we're hearing from like my clients and friends and everything are really, really important. So today, Whitney, we are going to be talking about everybody's favorite topic, Whitney's favorite topic, time management.
I'm in the hot seat.
You are in the hot seat. You're in the hot seat. All right. So when you hear the term time management, most people are like, oh, it just seems boring. But honestly, if you can't master managing your time, everything else in your life is going to stink. It just does.
Okay. So I love this concept. Like I love cleaning a house, which is really weird,
do you really?
Right? I really do.
Okay.
I kind of like putting things in its place.
All right. Okay. Got it.
However, once I stepped into the realm of business owner.
Right. Everything went out the window.
A little bit. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's think about this. Let's think about this for a minute. Because when we talk about time management, the mistake I feel like most people make is they're like, okay, time management means fitting everything in. How do we get it all to fit in?
Yeah.
Right? Is that how you view it when you hear that phrase? What do you think of?
But what comes to my mind is where to do what.
Okay.
So my mind goes to time blocking.
Okay.
And
I
maybe
like time blocking.
Because I think if I time block, I will be able to do everything.
I am a big proponent of time blocking. We'll talk about that. But there's a couple things. So a lot of times, there's two big things with time management. One is people feeling like everything has to fit. Everything's got to go in. And, you know, when I actually 10 years ago when I was writing my book, I have a book called Don't Make Me Pull This Car Over. And it's a book for working moms, right? And so originally when I was writing it, the title was, you know, how to balance it all. Because balance was the big word back there. And then we moved to blend. And now we've moved to time blocking. All of it, it's the same thing. So back then, what used to bother me is people like, oh, work-life balance. Nothing balances, ever.
That's
ever.
true. That is true.
So if, you know, people approach time management as like, oh, I have to fit it all in. I have to make it all equally work. It's not going to happen. It's not possible. Because some days are going to be very heavy kid days, family days, friend days, and some days are going to be heavy business. It's going to change from day to day. So what stresses you out the most if we put you in the hot seat here? Is it just getting it done or what?
That, and I would also say I could definitely improve in the area of where everything goes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So like sometimes I'll be, moving from one project to another. Because we have like systems in place, right?
Yeah.
But systems are only as good as the people using
Absolutely.
them. So sometimes I'll kind of jot a note. I'm like, all right, I need to go back and put that in somewhere. And then I forget because I'm on to the next thing. And then it's due tomorrow. And you're like, I got to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So there's a couple things. Okay. One, my guess, and this is with everybody, there are probably some things on that beloved to-do list that don't need to be on that list.
You mean
you might have to take some things off. Here's what I mean by that is, there's two things.
Okay.
One, I'm a to-do list person. A lot of us, so I was born in September, which means I'm a Virgo. So
I was in December.
Ridiculously organized and like anal about my to-do list.
What does Sagittarius mean?
I don't know. I just know mine. I don't know. I'm not that into it.
Well, then.
Well, it's all right. But here's the thing with being organized is I would, and I don't know if any of you guys listening do this. Have you ever written a to-do list and put things on the to-do list that you've already done just so you can check them off? Have you not done that? Is this just me? Yeah. Okay. I'm hearing. Yeah. Everybody in the studio is going, yep. Mm-hmm, okay. Yeah. Do you not do that?
No, but there are, I have had where I have had a list and I check something off.
Right.
But I remember it in my mind, and then it's one of those, did I do that?
Or did I not?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've had that experience.
I mean, it's all about having a system, and you got to put everything there, but it's the satisfaction of crossing it off for me.
Yeah,
but here's what I found. So when I would work off to-do lists before, and I'm back in paper days, like when we were still writing everything down before electronics, what I would find is there would be things that inevitably, and even now electronically, inevitably there are things on my list that have just been on my list for a while. Right? So after a while, you've got this long list of to-dos. The bottom 10 things are probably things that have been on that list for forever, for months. You're not going to friggin' do them. Take them off. So, I mean, if you look at your list and like, I'm never going to get to that. Yeah. You know, there was one example I had is years ago, I had it was like a credit card, and I wanted to call the bank to get a lower interest rate on something or see what perks they had. That thing sat on my to-do list for like 2 months. And finally, I'm like, I'm not going to call. So I just took it off. Because sometimes we feel like we're supposed to be busy. Yeah. And so we create extra crud that we don't really need to be doing. So
like
I would say
unnecessary anxiety.
Yep. So step one, take off all the crud that doesn't need to be there anyway.
All right.
And then part 2, Miss Whitney, and everybody listening, because I know this is a huge problem. I will say with my private coaching clients, this is probably one of the biggest challenges for them, is you are not necessarily the best person to do everything on your list. So if you need to outsource it or delegate it to somebody, do it.
Okay.
All the time. Like, and I'll give you an example. I had probably a couple months ago, I mean, and I'm talking personally and professionally. So professionally, it's a little bit easier. You know what you can give to your team or your assistant or your staff. Personally, though, there are a lot of things we need to delegate. Okay. Cutting the grass. You know, the same people that, which is good. And I do realize there's a financial component to it, you know, that some people just can't afford to do it. But you know, my thought is you can't afford not to, because the same people that I hear complaining about having to do yard work on Saturday and not having a weekend, they're the people that I'm like, well, then have somebody come cut your grass. I mean, I did cut mine for a little while by myself. It was a hot mess. It is not my gift.
Well, I would also say it's on that. Maybe it's strange that I'm able to process that differently than something else, but I think of it as I'm buying time back.
Absolutely. And that's the best way to think of it.
Not paying to have the grass cut, buying time back.
And that's the best way to think of it, is if you are running and feel like you have no time to yourself, you have to buy back time to take to yourself. Yeah. A lot of times it's weekend. So, I mean, we're talking house cleaning, cutting the grass, laundry, anything like that, driving, you know, the kids around, do carpools. You know, I'm a single mom. I have 3 kids, and so I kind of joke that my afternoons and evenings pretty much require a PhD in logistics. It is it's insane. Like, I don't even know. And my kids, I'm a one sport parent. Like, my kids, like, they get one activity. You can do something at school and you can get one sport. There's still like 97 practices in a week. Yep. So you've got to leverage where you can. Sometimes that's hired help. Sometimes it's calling another mom on the team and saying, hey, I'll take if you pick up. But it's creating the time, buying back the time. So my guess is you're probably holding on to some things. I think a lot of people listening are holding on to some things. So write it down. Write down and say, what is it I'm doing that drives me absolutely batty? Yeah. For me, it's laundry. I hate laundry. I can do the laundry. Yeah. I don't know if you guys listening do this. I can wash and dry the laundry. Okay, that I got. Totally. They literally, I don't even know what happens. I'll wash it. I'll dry it. My basket of clean clothes will sit there. Now, the cool thing is if you let it sit there long enough, the kids will start taking stuff out of it. So by the end of the week, it's less to fold. But even when you separate and fold it, like, then it sits there folded. So, you know, on weeks that I know I'm going to be uber busy or traveling a lot, I leverage and use a laundry service. And it's fantastic. The first time I ever did it, I've talked about this on here before. The first time I did it, I was like, well, this is I thought it was kind of it seemed a little uppity to me. I was like, who has a laundry
Yeah,
service?
yeah,
Like, because
yeah,
it
yeah.
sounded, but then one of my friends like, just try it. Like, you're uber busy this week. It was just a crazy time. And I did it. And I drove back up to my house, and there was my little nicely, perfectly fold. And those people can fold too. I don't even know what was happening, but perfectly folded. I cried. Like, I drove into my driveway, like, oh my God, look at my laundry. It's beautiful. But, you know, I don't do it all the time. But if I know I'm going to have a busy week, I'm traveling a lot, and I get back and I don't want to have to do everything, leverage out some things.
And that way with clearing out the dishwasher.
All right. I don't think you can have somebody come clear out the dishwasher. You could leverage that to your spouse.
New business.
I
put ear pods in and then I'm good.
And do it. Yeah. But, you know, and there's some things you like. Like, I love to vacuum. I have a lot of hardwood, so I don't get to do it as much anymore, but I like vacuuming. It's very relaxing to me.
It's rewarding. You can see
see the clean. Maybe that's what it is. You can see the lines. But it you know, so I would say looking at your schedule when it comes to time management and do that. And then, you know, one of the other things, we'll talk about time blocking, but before we get to that, here's the other thing I hear a lot from clients and friends who are like, I have no time. You know, they're like, oh, it's funny. I hear it all the time. Well, I would do it, but I don't have time. I don't have time. Here's the thing. Everybody has time. And I push back on them a lot. I'm like, it's a choice. How you spend your time. Yeah. We all right, my birthday twin, Beyonce, because we're born on the same day. I mean, you've heard that saying. I've seen a makeup bag with that on it. It says we all have the same hours in the day as Beyonce. Yeah, yeah. She's getting a lot of stuff done during those 24/7.
That is
right?
true. That's that's really good. Yeah.
So we all have time. It's just a matter of what we're saying yes to and what we're saying no to.
Right.
And what we're putting off. What we're doing. I'll start tomorrow. You know, so it's time management's about figuring out what's important, right? What do you really want to do?
Okay, that's good.
What you feeling guilty about over there, Whitney?
Well, I'm thinking, so now what I want to know about, so we've got the list of what we need to keep, if you will, and what we kind of need to either let go of or outsource.
Outsource, let go of, take it off, whatever.
Yeah. Systems for doing so, right?
Yes.
So like me personally, I feel like I remember it better if I write it down.
Mm-hmm.
However, we're very much mobile all the time, right? Like, we're not necessarily always here at the studio. Sometimes we'll be in a client's office.
Yep.
You know, we're working out of Starbucks. Like, if I've got a meeting in Buckhead, I'll just hop into Starbucks and work before I'm meeting. Which, you know, you would think everything should be digital.
Right.
So kind of walk us, because I've seen your calendar and it has many colors, but somehow I can tell kind of everything on there. It's an organized chaos.
It is. And it makes sense to me. And I think that's the thing with the system around time management and scheduling. Like, people look at my calendar, they go, oh my God, like, what do you, and I look at it and go, okay, it's relaxing to me because I know what I'm doing. So whether it's a manual system or an electronic system, you have to find what works for you. I know what works for me, but what I've found in working with different clients of mine is what works for me does not necessarily work for somebody else. So the first thing is I would figure out if you're manual or electronic or a combination of the two. So I keep my calendar and my to-dos electronically. I keep my notes, my thoughts, topics, you know, things we're going to talk about on the podcast, things I'm going to blog about. I have my little trusty journal, which is here actually. So I keep all that there. So mine's kind of a combination. So if I'm working with somebody and they're challenged with time management, that's what I'm figuring out is let's figure out what's going to work for you. It's usually one of those two or a combination. And then after that, you've got to figure out two things. One, what is all the crud I need to get done during a given day, week, month, whatever. So everybody has immediate stuff, short-term, long-term. And then it's got to be somewhere. You have to know, because if not, it falls through the cracks.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question is, do you treat time like your paycheck, right? Like the penny has to go everywhere. It's either going to go to groceries, it's going to go toward a utility, or it's going to go in your savings, right? Because you get a finite check.
You get a finite amount of time.
Yeah. So do you do the same with your time?
So here's what I've found that really works for me, and this is where this has made the biggest difference, is we waste a lot of time.
Yeah.
And then we come back with the thing going, I don't have time.
Yeah.
And that always goes back to my thing. Everybody, you have time.
Mm-hmm.
You're choosing to spend it not wisely. You're choosing to blow the money, if you will.
Yeah.
So what I typically tell people to do is once you've captured everything that you need to do, and it's in a place, so like, you know, written on your calendar, what have you, I write everything down. What I do is at the end of every day, I do what I call posting and planning. Posting means I look at everything I did today and I write down any to-dos and I add that to my list. So if any takeaways from any meetings, conversations, networking events, client calls that I went, whatever my follow-up items, I capture that on my list at the end of the day. So it is now entered my to-do list. I also take off anything I've done. Now that's the posting part. The planning part is what I see everybody missing is I look at my next day and I'm looking for two things. First and foremost, where's the white space in my calendar? And what I mean by that is you mentioned my calendar is color-coded. It is color-coded. It's by category. Some of it's client, some of it's like project work, some of it's like being in studio doing this. But I look for the white space. And the white space in my calendar is where I don't have anything there. Nothing's scheduled. So I look at my to-do list, I look at my white space, and the night before I plug in my to-dos. So I may say, oh man, I've got an hour and a half between client calls. I'm going to go ahead and write that blog post and send these 5 emails. Yeah. So before I go to bed tonight, I know what I'm doing during every white space tomorrow. And I know that sounds anal, but what that's allowed me to do is then I don't get to tomorrow and go, oh my God, I got an hour and a half. Well, let me just go grab a Starbucks and let me do this. And let me call my friend. People waste so much time. And the thing with me is I travel, and for speaking, I'm running a business. I've got my kids. I don't have the time to waste. So I'm very, very intentional with what I do with my time.
I feel like that helps you sleep better at night.
I don't know that I sleep better, but no, the other things keep me up at night. I don't need it to be the time.
But also because not necessarily just business owners, but even if you're any type of manager,
right?
Or employee. I mean, we all have deadlines, but looking at the schedule and seeing, I know I've got to get this done tomorrow, and this is exactly when I'm going to get it done.
And now, do things come up where that gets all blown out of the water from time to time? Absolutely.
Sure.
Then you just shift. But the main thing is I'm tackling as many of my to-dos and I'm not wasting any time thinking, all right, what do I need to do next? Now with that, there's a couple other things I do. I know something's going to go wrong. I'm going to get a call from school and somebody's sick, something like that. Or, sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes a client calls and reschedules. They had something come up and I have a new block of free time. My goal is to be intentional about the time. I don't waste it. But what that's done for me is it's allowed me to have more hours for other stuff. Because I think what happens during the day is we throw in everything work. So I do 2 things with my schedule. One, family and friends are very important to me. I schedule them in first. So like if I have a luncheon like girlfriend's luncheon I did on Sunday, if I've got a friend's birthday party, that goes in my calendar and I work around those because that's important to me.
Sure.
The second thing I do is, I really am starting to look, I guess it's kind of goes to being intentional, but part of it is that, but I'm also starting to look at what brings me energy. So every week on my calendar somewhere, I actually have it on my to-do list every week, and I call it add one energizer. So somewhere during my week, I have to have a phone call, a face-to-face meeting, a get-together with somebody who energizes me. And I actually have a list, because I'm organized, of who it is. Because, sometimes things just aren't fun during the week. Sure. And you want to have that one little bright spot in your calendar. You're like, oh, my God, I'm so excited to get to have coffee with Whitney. That helps. It kind of helps balance everything out. So if you can roll all together, you can be a little better.
I like that.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Then at least you got something. I mean, I'm fortunate. My clients are, I'm at the stage in my business where, I've had my coaching practice and consulting practice for 10 years now. I do a lot of speaking, so I get to meet some great people. But I'm also really intentional about who I take on as clients.
Yeah.
Because I want us both to grow. I want us to have fun. I want our meetings to be exciting and energizing, and that makes it a little bit easier to get through those to-dos.
Yeah. So a couple of minutes left.
Yes, ma'am.
If someone is listening to this and they're just in a mess, they're like, oh man, my stuff is everywhere.
Yep.
What's a good jumping off point to kind of get back on track, right? Because I think it's almost back to the laundry analogy.
Yeah.
Once that laundry basket is spilling out into the floor.
All over, yes.
Then it's like
in the
worse
hallway. And
than if you would have just kept it going, right?
Right.
Like if you were regularly washing, for example.
Right.
So if they're really far down in the hole of, oh man, I'm really behind on all the stuff I need to do, or I don't have a plan in place, what's
Yep.
a good jumping off point to kind of get back on track?
First and foremost, get everything in one place.
Okay.
So like I said, I do keep like thoughts, but all my to-dos are in one place. So all the stuff that's overwhelming you, personal and professional, because I feel like if you just make your list of personal or professional to-dos,
Yeah.
and then you're ignoring the personal, it's not going to help. So
Sure.
put everything in one place. That's
Okay.
the first thing. But then immediately after you do that, make sure you take off everything you know. Be honest with yourself. There are at least 10 or 20 things on your list you're never going to friggin' do. Take them off. Get rid of them. Get your no guilt, no judgment at all. Just take them off your list.
So do they go to another list, or they?
Well, here's the thing. No, they'll pop back up later because if you have organized my kitchen pantry,
Yeah.
and organize my kitchen, and you laugh because I have somebody that has this on their list.
I totally
if
get
that
it,
has been
though.
on your list for 6 months.
Yeah.
You're stressing yourself out having it on your list.
Right.
Take it off.
Right. Okay.
And then once you
It's
get
done.
once the laundry basket's empty, you get back. Then maybe it'll pop back in your head like, yeah, maybe I can tackle that. That's okay.
Yeah.
Take it up. Now, don't take off follow-ups to clients if you need to follow up with clients, but usually there's something in this culture, and I don't know when it started, that we feel like the busier we are, we hustle, we move, we go.
Yep.
There's not an award for running yourself into the ground.
Yeah,
There's just
yeah.
not. But we do it. All of us do it. I'm guilty of it as well. So taking time to kind of figure out, all right, what needs to just come off the list? Do
Sure.
that first. The other thing is, as you're keeping things in one place, I had a coaching client one time and I went in his office. I was like, oh my God, you are keeping Post-it notes in business. They were all over the place, but continue to keep it in one place. Things are going to pop into your head at the most inopportune times. Mine happens when the sleeping thing, when I'm going to sleep, I'm like, oh, I need to do this. Oh, I need to do this.
Yeah.
I text myself, which sounds really weird. Does anybody else do this? Do you ever text yourself or email yourself?
I will do notes
Okay.
on my phone.
Yeah. So whatever it is,
yeah.
text, notes, dictation, whatever it is, you could do that. I send myself a text so I can pull up my text string
Sure.
anytime. And then once I've done it or added it to my to-do list, I just take it off.
I kind of like that though, because it would give you that little notification that like if you're at night and you're like,
and I don't
just need to
answer it
remember-
till I add the notification
Yeah,
until I add it
that's
to
smart.
my thing. I'm
That's
one of
smart.
those people that has my phone attached to my hip pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
So that's just an easy way for me. But like I said, find what works because if you know the challenge, what's in front of you, it's easier to tackle. So like I said, the first thing is just say no to get rid of stuff that shouldn't be on there.
Okay.
And then the other piece that I would say helps the most, and then I'll quickly touch on time blocking. The other piece besides taking things off is don't always say yes. Everybody says yes.
Yeah.
Say no to a lot of things. We need to say no way more than we say yes. Way, way, way more. So if something isn't aligning with your values, your goals, I typically tell people if it's not bringing you energy or moving you closer to your goals, the answer needs to be no.
Wow.
Okay.
That's good.
The exception being like your child needs dinner,
Of
something
course.
like that. That's a yes. But those are the main things. You got to make sure it's in alignment. And then the time blocking, I am big on time blocking. So for those of you guys that don't know time blocking, it's really just putting chunks of time on your calendar for certain things. Like it could be project work, it could be writing a blog. But it's a really popular concept now, but there's 2 areas that I feel like people forget with time blocking.
Okay.
The first is not everything takes an hour. So usually when I see people that are big in time blocking, they say,
Sure.
oh, I blocked an hour for this meeting. I blocked an hour to do this. Some things take an hour and a half. Some things take 10 minutes. So if I'm putting something on my calendar that's sending an email, I don't have an hour blocked for that. I have 10 minutes blocked for it. So that's one of it, is just making sure the thing is right. And then the other thing with time blocking, my rule of thumb is you can move it, but not remove it. So if I'm looking at a
Nice.
week in a glance and I've got my pretty little colors,
Yeah.
I can move things around during that week. And that's my rule with my clients. You can't move it to the next week during that week. So if I set out 10 o'clock on a Monday to write a blog post and the creative juices are not flowing, I'll move it to a different time on the week. I just can't take it off.
Nice.
So that's, just a tip to kind of keep it all in the right place.
It's funny because as we were going through this, I heard my husband Isaac's voice in my, not literally in my
I was about to say, your husband's
Usually
voice
he comes
is
through
actually
the
in our
ear.
headset since he's produced.
but in my mind, because the other thing too, and it's so funny saying it out loud, but a resource that we all have, most of us, if you have an iPhone, or I don't know what Android has, but Siri, right?
Yeah.
He has said, like, get Siri to remind you about that tomorrow. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I should so do that.
I know.
Because that's an easy thing, too, and it's something that's already at
Yeah.
your disposal. It's not an extra thing I've got to go buy. It's already
Right.
there.
It's
I
already
just need
doing
to use it and remind me tomorrow.
Yep.
Because
Yeah.
I think that's half the battle, is getting it all out of here,
Right.
and either in here or on a piece of paper.
And everybody, that's why I always tell people, there is not one system that works for everybody. I've tried several. I mean,
Yeah,
I feel
yeah.
very secure in what I'm doing now, but it doesn't work for everybody. So if Siri works, heck yeah. Siri will remind you of all kind of stuff. I was with a
call you
girlfriend.
Beyonce.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know it could do that. Call me beautiful. No, I was with a friend at the lake this weekend, and she had thrown something in the oven. And she's like, okay, and I'm so old school, like, we need to set a timer so we can ding, whatever.
Yeah.
And of course, we walk back out to the lake, the dock.
Yep.
So I'm like, we're not going to hear this. This house is going to burn down. And she's like, Siri, set a reminder for 45 minutes. And I'm like, I didn't even think about, but yeah, that's how she's like, oh yeah, Siri will tell me when to take the lasagna out of the oven.
There you go.
Yeah.
I
There's,
know,
I mean,
it's so
there's
funny.
so many tools, but it gets back to here. I mean, if I'm loving on y'all and taking the filter off here, the real truth is, it is usually not the system. It is the fact that you're making, not you, the world, people are making excuses, and they're falling into this, I don't have time BS.
Yeah.
And that's really the biggest issue. And it's aggravating. Like, it is, because I'm like, you do have time. You're just making poor choices about how you're spending it.
Yeah.
It's just like if you make $100, you've got $100, you can only spend that in a finite amount of places. Time's the same way. You mentioned that analogy earlier. It's just, where are you spending it?
Yeah.
So I would first and foremost catch yourself if you're like, oh, I don't have time. You do. So what do you need to say no to so you can say yes to the part that's fun, that you really want to do?
I like being your sidekick.
Oh, you like being the sidekick? I'm so glad. So what are we doing? What are you doing about time management now, Miss Whitney?
We have a holiday coming up.
We do.
I'm going to take one of those days.
You can take it off?
I am going to take
I'm
one
so
of them
excited.
off. And then I'm going to
Okay.
take one to put everything in one spot.
I think that's good. I think that's a great start.
So real quick before we go, if someone needs more help in this area, how can they get in touch with you?
So a couple ways. We're always available on the website, andreegroup.com, ANDREE, 2 E's in Andree. But connect with us on social. And here's another thing too, is we're going to start taking some questions. So if you guys have questions about this topic or something you're struggling with, post it in the comments, email, DM us, whatever, and we'll answer them, because I think this is a conversation that we need to keep continuing, because it's something that so many people struggle with. So yeah, connect with us. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all that stuff at Andree Group, and we'd love to hear from you. So,
Awesome.
thank you so much for being my
Thank you.
sidekick.
No, thank you.
All right, everybody. Until next week, keep pushing past those limits.